Hi, I'm Charisse Parton. Have you ever considered that there's a connection between faith and health? How many times have you prayed for a loved one, asking the Lord to touch them for an illness or disease? Our program today will hopefully inspire you with my personal testimony of how God miraculously touched and healed me. Welcome, friends. I'm Charisse Parton, and this is Return to Eden. Today in our studio is my wonderful, incredible husband who walked this journey with me, Tobby Parton.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Also joining us today, he is a professional fitness and nutrition specialist, COO of Skywatch TV, and author of the international best-selling book, Timebomb. Welcome, Joe Horn.
Hi, Charisse.
Hey.
This is so exciting.
I am so excited you guys are here.
To have launched this new endeavor, Return to Eden. What is that?
Yeah,
right?
This is incredible.
We're going to continue that conversation today, but I want to flip the script, if I may.
Okay.
Take a little bit of license, because I realize that a lot of the viewers that have started watching this program are new to the audience.
Right.
They're still asking questions, Toby, like, what is Return to Eden? So before we get too far ahead of ourselves, though, I feel like it's really important for new viewers to really get to know you and your backstory.
Okay.
You know, a lot of our viewers probably don't know this, but Charisse, I've known you for years and years, Toby as well.
Yeah.
Way before you came to work with Skywatch and Return to Eden. A little unknown piece of history here. I was actually your and Toby's worship leader.
Right.
Like over a decade ago?
That's right.
Or really close to a
Yeah,
decade
it's been
ago.
that
That's
long.
right.
At a
right.
youth group where you
Yeah.
guys pastored.
That
That's
was
right.
awesome.
And what did I used to tell you, Toby?
Good
I said,
times.
someday, man, we got to get you to write a book or do something. This guy, he's not going to like this, but I love this guy. I've always thought that his level of teaching
Yeah.
was capable of teaching youth, but also so intelligently delivered
Thank
that he
you,
could have
Joe.
done marriage counseling or any number of things to young adults. Just a great guy. Love Toby.
Thank you so much.
So it's now not a secret that I'm a huge fan of both of the Partons. Charisse, in your own words,
Yeah.
to really help the audience understand how you came to Skywatch,
Yeah.
some of your own backstory, and then we're going to pivot into your own health journey.
Okay.
Let's just start with, briefly, when did you come on to Skywatch? And originally, of course, you were doing HR and things
Oh,
like
yeah.
that with me, but
Yeah. Several years ago, I retired. And I told my friend Joe Horn for years, he kept saying, you need to come down. And I'm like,
I tried to whittle her down for years.
No.
Someday you gotta come work
no,
with us.
I'm retired. And then he whittled far enough to where I'm like, fine, take it.
Yeah.
You know, I had a large background, even starting in high school, of administration.
Absolutely.
My very first position was in a physician's office at 17 years old. And then from that point, administration just, for whatever reason, and leadership positions just seemed to, for what, I don't know
Just had
why.
an
Maybe it was a
aptitude.
gift or,
It
whatever.
clicked.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Fortune 500 companies with positions and companies in multiple states, in human resource management, in executive management, those types of positions. So when I came here, we never say here that God does not know what Skywatch needs when Skywatch needs it.
right.
He has always provided.
Yeah.
It has always been on time. And we really didn't even know when I came on board what we were going to do with me, but it was just like, here, come on board.
Yeah.
So I did, and since then...
You were answering phones at the call center and doing all kinds of things.
doing all
but
kinds of stuff.
with your background, though, in HR and working for big corporations,
Yeah.
at one point you worked for a massive company that rented limousines to high-end clientele and all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
And so tons of administrative experience and so forth. Well, those skill sets obviously, as we continued to grow as a ministry, fit naturally with the things we needed. So,
Right.
this job began to evolve. And we're not going to cover the last several years because it just takes a long time.
Right.
But previous to your having come here,
Yeah.
you were considerably different shape.
Oh.
Your health was completely compromised. And I
Yeah.
remember,
Night and day.
11 years ago, there was this time where you weren't looking good, Charisse. And I remember Toby confiding in me concerns that he had, and you were going through some very stressful things, and it was compromising your digestion, but things
Yeah.
would be a lot worse than that even prior to that.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's
yeah.
really what I wanted to do for the next couple of weeks is take a time out,
Okay.
slow down a little bit, and let's just bring the viewers through part of that journey so that they understand when you host this program,
Right.
This is not just a vocational point of
No.
interest for you. This is a
No.
part of who you've been since way before you
Absolutely.
took on this challenge of hosting Return to Eden in terms of eating correctly, God's medicine, His
All
herbs,
those things.
and His healing. So let's just go back.
Absolutely. Okay.
Approximately 1997,
Right.
you start experiencing all kinds of anomalous issues with your heart. Some very serious things begin to develop. The doctors have all kinds of really bad news. It's rattling Toby's life. It's
Right.
really challenging your expectation for how long you're going to have.
Oh, absolutely.
What was going on in 97-ish?
You know, it was ironic. You know, a lot of people, when they come back to the Lord, or, you know, Toby and I had kind of strayed, not strayed in this sense, but just wasn't going to church anymore. But we had decided, you know, with 3 kids, we, you know, he and I grew up in church. We had a joke in our house that we had a drug problem. We were drugged to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night.
Drug
Yeah,
problem.
that's our drug
Being
problem.
drugged to church.
Exactly. So we wanted for our kids what we had the benefit of with our parents.
Right. That's
You know,
exactly
it
right.
was huge for us. So we decided to start going back to church. And the Sunday, the very Sunday that we found what would become our home church for about 10 years, where we would begin our ministry together, that very first Sunday we come home from that service, we're out in the yard. It's September. So he's going to take me deer hunting. So we're sighting in rifles and, you know, things like that. And all of a sudden, I just, boom, just going limp, blacking out, just over and over. It was
And you had
really
no history.
scary.
This just came on really
Just
sudden.
real
Just suddenly these like
super sudden,
blackouts.
just and over and over. Just kept doing it. It was really scary.
You were athletic. You played volleyball. You
Yeah.
ran track in high school. She was physically fit. No issue.
So you would never picked her out of the lineup and said, you know, that girl's probably destined for health trouble. And I think that's probably something that a lot of our viewers that have struggled with
gosh,
health or are
yeah.
struggling with health will identify with. I can tell you the same thing about my journey. And we're
Sure.
not talking about me, but yeah, you know, your expectation is you're doing great. You think of yourself as a
Yeah.
healthy person. Then one day,
Oh yeah, we had a new
That quick.
house, our kids.
that fast.
It
you
was
know.
that quick.
That fast,
Blacked
for
out.
Sure.
I carried her from the table, her shooting table, into the house.
Mm-hmm.
Put a cool, damp cloth on her face, trying to get her to wake up, checking her pulse. Her heart rate was racing.
When you say she went out, you mean like
Blacked out.
she doesn't,
Limp.
like fainted, she's out.
I was coming back from checking the targets, and she had her head on the table. And I thought she had just laid her head down to
Yeah,
rest. It was
yeah.
extremely hot that day. It was a hot
Uh-huh.
September day. And I thought, are you okay? And I spoke to Charisse, and she didn't answer. She didn't respond. She was out.
Scary.
I know exactly the moment because, I mean, I've experienced similar things. My wife has fainted, you know,
Yeah.
and I know the moment where your heart immediately starts, da-dum, da-dum,
Something's
da-dum,
wrong.
something's off,
Yeah.
and they're not responsive, and
And
you
your
don't know.
brain goes
Yeah,
into
your
what
brain
is
is
Exactly.
going on.
hyperdrive. I know the
Yeah.
mode.
She wakes up after I carry her in the house, put a damp cloth, wash her face, talk to her, get her to respond, and then she blacks out again that quick. So I put her immediately in
Yeah.
the car seat, strap her in, and to the ER, Springfield.
So you get to the ER, you're probably, I don't want to say hysterical and project that because you've always been a cool, collected person, but on a scale of 1 to 10, where was your alarm meter?
Panicked. We were 20-something.
I
We
got
were
you.
in our young 20s,
I got you.
mid-20s,
Yeah,
scared, didn't know what was going on.
sure.
Just wanted to get her fixed.
Was
get her
she
taken
able
care
to walk in, or was it one of those get a wheelchair?
I think by the time
paramedic?
we made the 45-minute drive to the hospital,
Uh-huh.
she was cognizant.
Uh-huh.
She was responsive. She could kind of walk, but very weak. It
Yeah, yeah.
had completely drained her. So she was leaning on me, and I was helping her through the doors and into the seat in the ER.
So you get to the ER. I'm assuming they check you in.
Yeah.
They probably did it fairly quickly based on what you were describing were
Yeah.
your symptoms.
Yeah.
What did you start to learn that night? What were the doctors telling you?
What they did is they just did, you know, kind of their basic triage and, you know, intake on what's going on, what are you seeing, what are you feeling, what's happening, you know, doing, you know, the normal stuff, putting monitors on and what they needed, you know, it's kind of like when you take your car to the shop and the mechanic says, I'm sorry, I can't duplicate the problem. So what they did is they put a 24-hour Holter monitor on me, which is like a device that has
Yeah.
5 to 7 leads that they stick all over
Yeah.
you. And they wanted to record that for 24 hours and then come back.
Yeah, they're recording beats per minute and
All that stuff.
fluctuations in
Yeah.
tempo and timing and strength. And
Right.
yeah, most
Yeah.
people have probably even seen that on TV. Those
Oh,
little,
yeah.
look like suction cups or
Yep.
clips, and they're clipped onto your body everywhere. And
Yep. The
Exactly
fun
right.
adhesive and yeah.
what kinds of updates were they giving you?
They, when we got back with the monitor, they take it out, they read it, do their thing, whatever. And, for all intents and purposes,
Yeah.
factually, in that 24-hour period of time, my heart basically went from about 180 beats a minute. My normal
Yeah.
rate is 69 to 76, maybe.
Uh-huh.
But it would go from your normal, average rate to upwards of 180 beats a minute. And then within that same minute, it would drop to less than 3 beats a minute. So it's
Which is
devastating on your blood pressure.
Cardiac arrest.
Basically, I'm
you're
dying.
Nearly,
Yeah.
at that point you are within
Yeah.
moments of maybe
Crash
it just
carts,
stops.
they're like normally crash carts there. It's a thing, whatever.
That happened 16 times in the first 24 hours. At any time, it didn't have to keep beating, even
Right.
at 3 or 4
Right.
beats a minute. The doctors explained it could have stopped. Any
Oh, yeah.
one
Oh,
of
yeah.
those 16
Any
times,
one of them. That's
Right.
could
it.
have just stopped.
Right.
Right.
Done.
Yep, for sure. So basically what they said, this is what the diagnoses, because there was more than one,
Uh-huh.
which was a little overwhelming. Like you go from fine to
Yeah.
what?
Right.
Found-
this list of diagnoses that you got in this visit was so
Over
long.
the first 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, several
of
the
days go
initial.
by,
Yeah.
but this is what they're basically concluding. And
Right.
there was too many for you not to write down and
Oh,
keep
no, I
history,
couldn't.
like
Yeah,
a
I
historical
couldn't.
record of. So
Yeah,
why don't you
for
share
sure.
that?
So profound bradycardia, sinus arrest, rare premature atrial contractions and premature ventricle contractions, sick sinus syndrome, neurocardial reflexive syncope, and then later they diagnosed tachycardia and something called Shy-Dragger syndrome, which basically causes the autonomic nervous system to fail. And people with that diagnosis alone, they're dead in 5 to 7 years. It's just not something they can fix.
Right. And obviously you're still here, and we're gonna get to some amazing things that only God,
Absolutely.
only God.
That's exactly right.
Medicine did not provide a path. In fact, much like my journey for you, a lot of the interventions would make things worse.
Worse.
Right?
Yep.
So now that you leave the hospital, you got all these diagnoses, I'm assuming they loaded you up with medications and probably told you, most folks with this have X number of years. They probably started to give you information that would under normal circumstances make a normal person
Freak out a little.
maybe expect a much shorter lifespan.
Oh my gosh.
Or begin to shift their dreams. Well, we're not going to be here in
No.
20 years, so
Listen.
it's time to get my house in order. I mean, what were you
No,
thinking
that's
at this
exactly.
point,
They
right?
scheduled a surgery, so they sent us home until the surgery day.
Now, what were they going to do with the surgery? What was that about?
What they had determined that the only possible kind of intervention could be, not with medication, would be a dual lead pacemaker that goes into both the sinus node and the AV node of the chambers of the heart.
And that way, when the heart drops to that 3 or 4 beats per minute,
Uh-huh.
it triggers the pacemaker to catch it.
Okay.
Do not allow it to stop beating,
Okay.
but it would catch it at like 30 beats per minute or less,
Okay.
and keep the rhythm of the heart
Gotcha.
beating.
This
Yeah.
is what they were
So they
explaining.
said we have to
Yes.
put in a pacemaker to keep you alive long enough to figure the rest of
That
this
was
out.
step one.
How fast did they put a pacemaker in your body?
Day 5.
Yeah.
So for a brief recap, you go into the ER with all of this heart fluctuation. A couple of days later, they send you home with a bunch of monitors so
Yeah.
that this thing is keeping track of everything.
Right. They can
But
figure out
by
what's up.
day 5 of the first event, they had determined that you needed a pacemaker and it was time for surgery within the same week.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Got to
Yep.
get a pacemaker
Yep.
in. We can't even have more conversations.
No,
We got to
exactly.
start with
It
pacemaker.
It
it
was
was
step
that
one.
deadly. They thought her heart could quit beating at any time.
So within
Yeah.
less than a week of your first dizzy spell / blackout, you now are the new person hosting a pacemaker. Is this correct?
Absolutely.
What was your expectation of life at that point?
I didn't really have one. Because of, when your blood pressure drops so dramatically, my brain, there's a lot of things that he's had to fill me in with about conversations in the hospital or
Yeah.
because my blood
You're just
pressure
not
would
even
just
there. Yeah.
toast. Yeah.
Let's pivot to Toby for just a minute. Toby, there was a moment where you were in the hospital where the gravity of your wife's diagnoses were really catching up with you, and you were trying to comprehend as a young man with a very young wife. Like, there was a moment, though, where your brain kind of intersected with the reality of what you were being told. Tell us about that moment and how that affected your faith.
Fear absolutely just gripped me. I had no idea it was something this devastating could happen that rapidly to a perfectly healthy mid-20s
Right.
individual, anyone,
Right.
male or female. And we didn't have a lot of experience with things like that. You know, you find
Right.
yourself just thrown into a tailspin.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of that, you're trying to figure out what to do. And immediately, thank God for my parents and my grandparents that raised us in a Christian home, prayer believing, prayer practicing, Bible believing
Yeah.
home, because I had seen prayer growing up. I'd seen the effects of prayer in my family. I knew God could heal and touch and help and strengthen and protect and deliver.
Yeah.
And immediately I ran to the bathroom. The nurse at one time told me, this is the gravity. This is what got my attention. The nurse came in, pulled me into the hallway, me and her mom, and said, we don't know how much time she has. Spend as much time with her as you can. That shook me to my core. We were just acquainted not long, just earlier that spring. We had fell in love. She's my best friend.
Yeah.
We're starting a new family together.
Mm-hmm.
We had just rededicated our life to Christ that same month, barely a week or two before.
Right.
And I run into the bathroom at the hospital, fall on my knees, and I just begin to pray right there, asking for God's help and dedicating my life to the Lord. I said, God, if you will give me my wife back, I will give you my life. I'll serve you the best I can the rest of my life.
I cannot imagine, being in Toby's shoes.
Right.
It's not that my life has been void of some significant challenges, and we have had our own version, mostly myself being
Right.
more in the role that you
Right.
were in terms of your health and your challenges, and my wife Catherine being more the Toby.
Having to carry that.
But
yeah.
there's no insulating your spouse.
Oh no.
I can't tell you how many times back in the day I went to the ER for anomalistic heart palpitations and things begin to cascade and dizzy spells and almost fainting, and the EKG and the echocardiograms and then a determination with the diagnoses, et cetera. And we're not talking about me, but I'm saying
Right.
Catherine lives
culmination of
through
that.
that.
Right.
And I'm partly out, and just like you. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm kind of coherent, and then I'm gone, and then I'm asleep, and then I'm back. And
Right.
you get home, and she's trying to litigate all of this mess, and
Oh,
she's not a
thank you.
doctor. You know this
Right.
feeling, and you're trying to make sense. So there's no way that your spouse is insulated from this.
Right.
It's just horrible, right?
Oh yeah. It's devastating.
You go home, though, now, as a couple, to the best of your abilities, you're trying to navigate what the future looks like.
Yeah.
What is the new normal, right?
Yeah.
They'd given you some medications, for example.
Oh, they're horrible.
Did any of this help? Did you
Right.
feel better? Oh, I've got a pacemaker now. What was life like now?
Right. It's horrid. It was horrid. The pacemaker.
Medications didn't help.
Medications didn't help. They kept tweaking them and messing
Sure.
with them, and then the pacemaker was shocking me. So it was so much pain. So then they are tweaking with that.
So you actually felt the
Oh
pacemaker.
yeah, it's unbelievable pain when that happens.
Wow.
I mean, it just takes your breath, and you're just like, okay.
Gotcha.
Running back and forth to doctors, which are an hour one way
Yeah.
from where we live.
Right.
Medication change after medication change after medication change. Zero insurance, paying out of pocket. He's the only one working because I can't even
Right.
drive at this point.
Right.
They don't even want me
Right.
driving. So it was
Right.
very frustrating. It was very frustrating.
So life becomes this new paradigm of doctor's visits and hassles and
Oh, yeah.
medication tweakery and all of this. You're totally arrested. Your whole
Oh,
new
yeah.
life is now this management of the heart thing. But let's back up, because I don't want to miss, this is a very important detail. You got your pacemaker in on a Friday.
Right.
Toby comes into the room, and they're going to, now it is Sunday, so we're 2 days later now.
Yeah.
Brand new pacemaker. Toby comes into the room, and you tell him the first place you want to go is where?
Church. Take
So
me
they're
to church.
gonna release you from the hospital. The
Yep.
first place you want to go is to church.
Yeah.
Something
Amen.
happened that day.
It did. We had an incredible body of people that were surrounding me and praying for us, and I
Yes.
just wanted to be back with them.
Uh-huh.
Thank
And
you.
we go. It was the beginning of a revival. I grew up in a denomination that we didn't talk about healing. We didn't talk about the 10th day in the book of Acts. There's things that we just, I joke that it was the chosen frozen, so to
Okay.
speak.
The chosen frozen.
I mean, we believed, but,
So it's like a stated position. We believe in these things, but we don't activate
yeah, we're
or
not going to talk about it.
practice in or
Yeah,
move
we're not
in.
going to.
Gotcha.
Just discount that under the rug.
But was there a special guest?
Well, yeah, there was a special guest coming, and we didn't know him, had no clue it was. I just
Right.
wanted to be back in
Right,
church, and our
right.
revival was starting.
Cathartic
And
environment
yes,
of fellow
just get
friends who
there.
believe, yeah.
So, my stated place in church is the back row. That way nobody can see me. And so we're there in the back, and it is packed. I mean, this little
Standing room only
country
is
church
amazing
is
for our little country church.
packed.
It was awesome.
Packed. Brother Ronnie Webb is there that night. Incredible man of God. He's been in our conferences, and it's packed.
How crazy! I mean, we're running out of time, so we got to stay
I know. I'm
focused on it.
trying.
But
I'm
it's
trying. It's
just
nuts.
how the Lord brings you through these
Oh, I know.
chapters, and then here, I don't know, maybe 15
Yeah.
years or 10
It was
years
it was
later.
a divine appointment.
But
because
Ronnie Webb is speaking though.
Yeah.
he's speaking from the platform. He stops. He said, I've got to tell you this. God wants me to tell you this. So he stops the service.
Mm-hmm.
He shuts the music off. You could hear a pin drop with over 100 people crammed in this tiny little church.
Okay.
You could just, a hush comes over the crowd. He points back at the back row on the left-hand side at us, and he says, you two in the back, I need you to stand up and step in the aisle.
And
And
I'm
we
like,
we didn't know who he was talking to. It was like,
What?
You're looking over your shoulder. like-
he's walking now toward us, and he
What?
says, yes, you two step out into the aisle. I've got a word from you from God. He walks straight back to us. He said, I see a problem right here somewhere. On this side of your shoulder is something going on right
So
here.
he's
Is there a
pointing-
problem? He's pointing at her left shoulder.
Where
Okay.
the
And I don't know if you can
pacemaker
see that
was.
or not. There's
Right.
about a
You can't see it on
Huge About a
film, but
2 or
she has
3
a
inch
a
scar.
right here where
Yeah.
the pacemaker was.
That's
that
where
was the
pacemaker
brand
had
new
just been
incision
put in.
that was still stitched up.
Right,
Still
Okay.
raw.
right.
2 days earlier, they just cut that open. And she said, yes, I just had a pacemaker. I just came out of heart surgery. And he looked at me and he said, son, God has heard your prayers, and he's going to heal your wife's heart. And we melted, Joe.
I bet.
We absolutely just broke down sobbing. We were happy. We were ecstatic.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
everything we were hoping to hear from God.
Absolutely.
Lord, please help. And we got a word directly from a man of God that God's going to heal your heart. And we just
And he didn't know you from Adam.
we
We'd
didn't
never
know
met
us
him.
from anyone.
He's just
Had
at
no
this
clue
church.
he
We'd never
he
seen
was.
this gentleman before.
Right.
No. We just knew it was our church revival, so we want to go. I want to be there.
So many times you hear of these stories, and people will share testimonies where there is a word spoken over them, but sometimes there is a journey between when the word is delivered and when the outcome or the final
Right.
destination or the result that you've been praying for
Right.
finally intersect.
Absolutely.
Sometimes God is spontaneous.
Sometimes.
For 20 years I prayed, and I felt often, Toby, like I had Job's empty comforter friends who would then put it
Right.
back on me, hey, Job, are you sure you don't have a secret addiction to something? Or are you sure
Oh,
you
my
haven't?
Lord.
Is there something
Have
you
mercy.
forgot to ask for, repentance over or something? And, I'm scrambling and I'm trying, it could be the Lord is using this person to make me evaluate my life. Like, is there any possible way? But I would pray for
Yeah.
spontaneous healing. Man, I would have loved
Right.
to be immediately delivered
The
from so many
microwave
things.
healing would be great.
Yeah. 60 seconds
We
later.
thought that was what was going to happen.
It did not.
But the
It did
journey,
not.
It
It
did
did
not.
not happen that way.
sometimes you can't receive, and this is the point because we are almost out of time. I have learned that sometimes you cannot receive whole, total healing
Right.
in its totality without the journey.
That's
Oh,
right.
my
Because the
gosh.
person that you are should you be delivered immediately and spontaneously and
Right.
easily with no skin in the game and
You're
no
right back in the
self-investment?
There you
same
go.
You
ditch.
haven't changed. Your heart hasn't changed.
That's exactly
You're living
right.
life identically to the way you did when you got
Yep.
yourself into sickness or illness through
Right.
decision making or being
Whatever.
irresponsible with your schedule or whatever. And to bounce back overnight, wouldn't that be amazing?
Hey, that's the brochure.
But
That's what I'd like.
I believe sometimes the Lord uses like a potter
Absolutely.
these
It's a
sometimes
process.
multi-years
Yep.
of chiseling away at the old Charisse to
Yep.
finally. So with the final minute, we've only got about a minute and a half to go.
Yeah.
We do not have time. Folks, this is why you cannot miss next week, because the greatest part of this journey still lies ahead.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
But Charisse, if you would, just show the people at home
Oh yeah.
the net result
Oh my gosh.
of where this story is going next week.
Oh my gosh, yeah. This wasn't
You-
overnight.
You brought with you to the studio, just
Yeah.
show them.
I asked for the pacemaker that they were going to take out at the end of this.
And you heard that correctly. Like, your brain did not misinterpret that. She just said the pacemaker that she requested they take out, which
Yeah.
is not even a procedure people do.
No, they don't. They don't
But
ever take
this
them
is
out.
why you can't miss next week, because this story
Absolutely.
is amazing. But she's holding in her hands the pacemaker that was in her body.
Right there.
And Charisse, not to get ahead of ourselves, but just so that the people at home have some closure between now and next week.
Yeah.
How many years has it been since the last episode with any kind of an anomalistic health challenge related to the heart? How many years have you lived well?
Since 1998.
Since 1998.
Yeah.
You know, I failed math. Maybe Toby knows how many years that
Oh, he can do it.
23.
23 years,
He's quick.
right?
23 over
And they
2
gave
decades.
you they gave you
Yeah.
this totally unknown number of maybe months to weeks to who
Yeah.
knows. She could slip at any moment.
Absolutely.
But then what happened was God.
But
Amen.
But for that's right.
Amen.
So we're totally out of time. Charisse, thank you so much for sharing today.
Oh,
Toby, thank
absolutely.
you for being here. We
Thanks
get you
for
guys
having
next
us.
week. We're going to continue this story.
Friends, we're going to continue this conversation next time on Return to Eden. I'm Charisse Parton. Eat better, feel better, live better.
Millions of Americans are suffering a health crisis epidemic right now completely unnecessarily. But what if I told you it didn't have to be this way? The truth for many is that the real culprit of modern disease is simply a lack of God-given knowledge. In Unlocking Eden, we provide hopeful, scientifically supported revelations regarding how you can access freedom from the bondages of disease. Skywatch TV is proud to announce the Unlocking Eden Special Collection. From the importance of detoxification, circadian rhythm, intermittent fasting, and unburdening metabolic pathways to maximizing immunity, methylation, and absolute essentials like quality sleep, Unlocking Eden is filled cover to cover with groundbreaking information that can help unlock the body's natural healing mechanisms, which can revolutionize your health and your life. In this incredible special collection from Skywatch TV, you'll also receive the Unlocking Eden Companion DVD, featuring the entire 4-week television series on Unlocking Eden and special content with my co-author Daniel Belt and I on securing some of nature's most powerful antiviral nutrition during seasons of virus, flu, and so much more. Sold separately, these items hold a retail value of over $150. Yours now for a donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling. The Unlocking Eden Special Collection, available now at the Skywatch TV store online. Order now or call 1-844-750-4985.